Thank you for tuning in to episode 17 of RaiderZone Podcast. As this episode is going to be a little different than usual. Usually we go over every sport and what's going on in every sport, but today we're going to dedicate this whole entire episode to college basketball and the NCAA tournament. As we know, that starts the first 4 games tomorrow, and then the first round will be starting Friday. I'm Will Brianza. Alongside me, I got Brendan Deviney, Ben Johnson-Bowers, and Jacob Butar, as we'll break down our picks for what we think is going to happen over really the next 3-ish weeks in college basketball. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start with the West bracket. The West bracket, obviously, headlined by the number 1 overall seed, which is Gonzaga. Undefeated season, hoping to keep that going, of course. But obviously, crazier things have happened in March. So with that being said, we're going to start with, in the West bracket, are there any first round or second round upsets you guys see coming? Jacob, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so obviously there's going to be no 16-over-1 seed victory here. Gonzaga's going to coast, I believe. I don't know if we're going to count this necessarily as an upset, but I do have 9-seeded Missouri going over the 8-seeded Oklahoma. Not much of an upset there at all, but Oklahoma has hit a rough patch here towards the end of their season, so I think that Mizzou's going to pull away there. And then the 5-12 matchup, that's where my first upset actually happens here. I have UC Santa Barbara. The Guachos taking off the Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton's coming off a terrible game in the Big East Championship. They have a lot of turmoil going on with their coaching staff as well right now with that team. And the Guachos, they are led by Ja'Cory McLaughlin, and he's been one of the best players in the Big West. And UC Santa Barbara, they're red hot. They've won 16 out of 17, so I believe that they can pull off the upset here over the Blue Jays. And then I think Ohio has a shot against Virginia just given the COVID situations, but I still have the Cavaliers winning that matchup. And then not much on the other end. I have USC winning against the winner of Wichita State and Drake, Kansas over Eastern Washington, Oregon over VCU, and then Iowa over Grand Canyon. And then really in the second round too, Gonzaga I think is going to coast past Missouri. Virginia, I think that they're going to beat the Guachos. I don't think it's going to be much of a Cinderella run there because I think Virginia is going to buckle down defensively, which is what they're known for, and they're going to advance. And then I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be interesting to see Evan Mobley of USC going up against the blue blood that is the Kansas Jayhawks, but I have Kansas beating them there. And Luka Garza, I think he's going to carry Iowa on to the next round as well. I have the Hawkeyes beating the Ducks. So my only first-round upset, the major one, is the Guachos, and in the second round, I really don't have many upsets at all.
So that would leave your Sweet 16 teams from this bracket as Gonzaga, Virginia, Iowa, and then you said Kansas?
That would be correct, yes.
All right, so we're going top 4 seeds for the West, keeping it kind of, top-heavy. And then we will break down who are the 2 teams you have going to the Elite Eight then. We'll break that down, and then we'll talk about we'll talk about the last 4 teams last, who will be the semifinal competitors. But for the Western bracket, Jacob, which 2 teams are moving on to the round of 8?
Yeah, so I think that Virginia can make it somewhat competitive against Gonzaga. I don't think it's going to be that much of a game, though. I can see Gonzaga winning by 10 or more points and moving on to the Elite Eight here. I just think the Cavaliers are really banged up with their COVID issues. And I think of their first 2 matchups, I get a lot of people are saying that Ohio can upset Virginia given their current circumstances. I just quite frankly don't believe that. I think Virginia is clearly better than Ohio. And then if they meet UC Santa Barbara, I definitely think they're way better than them as well. But Gonzaga is a real test for them, and I think Gonzaga is just going to advance there. And Kansas and Iowa, in many of my brackets, I went back and forth with this one. I think it's going to be a very, very close game. But I think personally, after watching the Big 12 tournament, if Kansas would not have been shut out of that Big 12 tournament, I think that they would have ended up winning the championship themselves. So I'm going to have the Jayhawks here. I was going to make it close because of Luka Garza and guys like that. But I look at guys like Ochai Agbaji for the Jayhawks, and I think that he can carry the Jayhawks to the Elite Eight. So my Elite Eight would end up being the number 1 seed Gonzaga and the 3-seeded Kansas Jayhawks.
Okay. Brendan, we'll shoot it over to you. Let's break down your Western bracket. What upsets are we seeing? Who's getting to the Sweet 16 and who's moving on to the Elite Eight?
All right, so top seed Gonzaga definitely moving on to the round of 32. I got Oklahoma taking care of Missouri. I don't think Oklahoma was arguably one of the hottest teams in all of the regular season, not just in the SEC. I do have Creighton knocking off UCSB. I just don't know the type of talent that the Gauchos have. Plus, Creighton's coming from the Big East, which is one of the best basketball conferences in the country. This is where I do have my first upset. Ohio is defeating Virginia. Virginia, the Cavaliers, they've got their COVID issues. They don't have everyone on the bench for that game. Not everyone has made it to Indianapolis yet. Plus, if you know your MAC basketball, there's not a hotter team in the country than the Bobcats from down in Athens. So I've got that upset 13-4, Ohio winning. This one was tough for me. USC against either Wichita State or Drake, and I think that is going to be Drake playing in that game. Drake is a very aggressive defensive team, but I had to go with the Trojans. I think that's actually a much closer game than people are going to think. Kansas taking care of Eastern Washington. That's a cakewalk for the Jayhawks. Oregon defeats VCU, and then Iowa defeats Grand Canyon. Then in the round of 32, I've got Gonzaga defeating Oklahoma. Even though I don't think it's going to be an easy game for the Bulldogs. Oklahoma might actually give Gonzaga a run in that one. And then I got Ohio winning again. I've got them defeating Creighton for the reasons that Jacob brought up. Creighton has definitely had a rough end of their season, some off-the-court issues, and they had a really bad ending to their Big East tournament. So I got Ohio winning that game. They continue their momentum. And then I got Kansas defeating USC, and then Iowa defeating Oregon.
And then for the next game,
moving
on to the Elite Eight.
Then I do have Gonzaga ending Ohio's Cinderella run.
Okay.
And then it's going to be number 1 against number 2. The Hawkeyes move on.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Ben, out west, what's going on for you, even though a lot of these teams aren't even from the West, but in the Western bracket, what are you doing?
All right, well, I got Gonzaga rolling against whoever they play from that play-in game. Then I got Missouri going over Oklahoma in a minor upset there. I think Creighton will get it done against UCSB. Then I take Virginia to get past Ohio. Ohio is a hot team. I think that could be a really close game, but I think Virginia's going to put it away at the end. I've got Kansas over Eastern Washington, Oregon putting away VCU, and then Iowa should solidly beat Grand Canyon from there. Gonzaga should get past Missouri pretty easily. Creighton, I'm going to take them to get past UVA. They're from the Big East. Like Brendan talked about, it's one of the best conferences for college basketball, Division I. Yes, they've had some turmoil, but I think they're going to get past the Cavaliers. USC, Kansas, I'm going to take Kansas in the second round. USC feels like a one-man show with Mobley. I'll take Bill Self and the Jayhawks. Then Oregon, Iowa, I'm riding with Luka Garza. I think he's going to get it done. I don't think Iowa wins the national championship, but I think they go on a nice run this March. Then Sweet 16, Gonzaga over Creighton. Iowa gets past Kansas. And then Gonzaga beats Iowa to head to the Final Four.
Okay. So, for me, I think it's pretty apparent Gonzaga. We're not seeing a 116 upset. I don't think we'll see one this year, but it's definitely not happening in the West region. I have Oklahoma over Missouri. Despite losing one of their players today to COVID, I still think they get it done against Missouri. Then this is where the fun happens in my bracket. I have both UC Santa Barbara and Ohio moving on. So a 12-13 matchup in the round of 32. Sorry, Creighton. Sorry, Virginia. ACC, Big East. It's not your year as the MAC and wherever Santa Barbara is from. They get to move on. And then looking at the bottom half of the Western bracket, I have the Trojans taking down whether it's Wichita State or Drake. I have the Trojans moving on. Kansas handles Eastern Washington pretty easily. Oregon, same thing. I don't think VCU is the same team we saw when they made their run about 5-6 years ago. And then Iowa handles Grand Canyon pretty easily. Going back up to the top, Gonzaga handles Oklahoma since one of their better players will be out for 2 rounds. I don't think they get it done without him against the Bulldogs. Bobcats of Ohio move on to the Sweet 16 after knocking down UC Santa Barbara. And then I have USC upsetting Kansas in the 6-3 matchup. Evan Mobley, the one-man show, gets done for me. And then Iowa and Luka Garza will move on to the Sweet 16 as well after knocking off Oregon. And then my Elite 8 matchup is Gonzaga and Iowa, 1 and 2, after Ohio and USC's both their Cinderella runs. And you don't see the 6 seed make it very often. So for me to have USC going this far, it's probably pretty rare, but like Mobley a lot, I just don't think he can get it done against Iowa. So, and then I'll talk about my Final Four Western team when we get down to the bottom of the topics here. But that takes us now to the
UC Santa Barbara is out of the Big West, by the way.
Big West. There we go. Thank you, Brendan.
I love these obscure teams. It's the best part of March Madness.
Exactly. So before we move on, for the West, everybody's Elite 8. I have 1-2. Brendan, you had 1-2, right? Gonzaga, Iowa.
Yep.
Ben, you had 1-2, and Jacob, you had 1-3. Or did you have
1-3?
Okay, so you have Kansas. All right, so we're all pretty similar as far as the Elite 8 goes, and we'll talk about the Final Four at the end. So now that takes us to the Eastern bracket, headlined by the Michigan Wolverines. We knew there was going to be a couple Big Ten teams with the top seed, just the way that conference played all season long. But Brendan, I'll start with you. Break down the Eastern bracket for us. Take us to your Elite 8 in this bracket.
Yep. So number 1 seed Michigan loses to Mount St. Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh my
they
gosh, my
definitely
eyes got
take
so
care.
big.
Definitely take care of either Mount St. Mary's or Texas Southern. 8-9, LSU defeats St. Bonaventure. I don't even think that's going to be close, by the way. Then I got number 12, Georgetown, upsetting number 5, Colorado. The Big East champions, Patrick Ewing. More on them later. Florida State defeats UNC Greensboro. Florida State just had a heck of a season offensively, and they really like to score. This one was tough for me. Now, there's always a team that comes out of that first 4 that likes to make a run. That's where this is going to be. Michigan State defeating BYU in that 11-6 matchup. Spartans, Tom Izzo is going to have those guys ready. They started to play better towards the end of their year, and so they're going to beat BYU. Then it's chalk for me the rest of the way. Number 3, Texas defeats Abilene Christian. Number 7, UConn defeats Maryland. And then Alabama defeats Rick Pitino's Iona Gales. In the round of 32, Michigan defeats LSU. They move on. Then I got Georgetown upsetting number 4, Florida State. The Hoyas move on. I don't think there's a hotter team in all of college basketball than the Georgetown Hoyas. They started their Cinderella run back in the Big East tournament, so they're continuing to move on. And then number 3, Texas defeats Michigan State, and then number 2, Alabama defeats UConn. And then my Elite 8, I got Georgetown winning again. I got them defeating Michigan. That's probably a very unpopular pick, but I got Georgetown facing Alabama in the Elite 8.
Georgetown, Alabama. Okay. So we got a 2-12 matchup going on in the Elite 8. Ben, we'll send it over to you. What's your Eastern bracket looking like?
I've got Michigan rolling. Even without Isaiah Livers, they should be able to easily get the job done in the first round. I got LSU over St. Bonaventure. I'm going to take Colorado to hold off Georgetown, although they are hot. Colorado, I think, will get it done. FSU will get Get it done versus Greensboro. I'm going to take Michigan State to beat BYU. I'll agree with that take. I'll take that. Then I'll take Abilene Christian to upset Texas.
Whoa.
They're going to be the team that surprises people this year.
Whoa.
Abilene Christian to the second round, to the Sweet 16. I'll take Maryland over UConn, Alabama over Rick Pitino and Iona. Second round, I've got Michigan over LSU. I think Leonard Hamilton and the Seminoles will get past the Buffaloes, move on to the Sweet 16. BYU will bow out to Abilene Christian, and then Alabama's going to roll past Maryland. From there, Michigan, without Isaiah Livers, and with him looking like he won't be returning, I'm going to take FSU at this point to get the Elite Eight, and then Alabama to beat Abilene, and then Alabama to advance to the Final Four.
Okay, so we got a major upset there in Abilene Christian, the 14-3 matchup. Will we see 15-2 in this podcast? Jacob, your Eastern bracket.
Yeah, so my Eastern bracket isn't as crazy as the previous two, I don't think. But I would say Michigan rolls in their first matchup. I think LSU also rolls, and I think LSU is going to give Michigan a really good run for their money in that second round. The Georgetown-Colorado game, I'm going back and forth with this one. I'm going to go with Georgetown just because in the college basketball tournament in March Madness, maybe not as a coach quite yet, but he's had that experience as a player. So I think that he leads Georgetown over Colorado in this instance. Florida State, I love the Seminoles going into this tournament. I think they roll in the first round. And then I agree with Brendan over here. I think Michigan State, they win in the first four, and they take out BYU. It's not that I don't necessarily believe in BYU. It's just I believe in Tom Izzo more. So I think he's going to have the Spartans ready. I think the Spartans are better than what their record shows, and they're going to end up pulling off an upset over BYU. Then the rest of the way, I do not have Abilene Christian taking out Texas in this case. Everybody on this podcast knows I love me some Texas basketball this year. So I've got the Longhorns going past Abilene Christian. UConn and Maryland, I think that's going to be a very close game, closer than what people would think, because Maryland is 16-13, but I think they're better than their record too because they played in the tough Big Ten. But I do think that UConn squeaks by in that one. And Alabama over Iona. But Brendan and I were talking before we got on this podcast. Rick Pitino is going to have Iona ready, and I think Iona is going to actually make it a pretty close game with Alabama. And then in the second round, I mean, like how I said, LSU is really going to give Michigan a run for their money, especially if they don't have Isaiah Livers with them. But I'm going to say Michigan squeaks by here against LSU. Georgetown, Florida State, I don't think Georgetown gets past Scotty Barnes and the Seminoles. I think Leonard Hamilton's going to have his team ready to really take out that potential Cinderella story. And then same thing goes for Michigan State and Texas. I think that's going to be a close game, but Texas moves on there. And then Alabama and Connecticut, I think Alabama's got too much firepower. They move on to the Sweet 16. So I got the top four teams once again in the Sweet 16 in this region. And then as far as the Sweet 16, this is where we start to see some upsets. Michigan's not going to get past Florida State. I think this is Leonard Hamilton's year where he has this great team that I think that they play so well on offense that they can just get past this Wolverines team that's kind of beat up a little bit right now. So I'm taking the Seminoles in this one. And Alabama, Texas, it's going to be a very close game. And I was going very much back and forth with it. But I'm going with the team that I've stuck by all year. I'm going with the Longhorns in this case. They come in after a Big 12 championship. I expect them to keep that type of play up. So my Elite Eight, it's looking like Florida State and Texas right now.
All right. So for me, Michigan gets past first round pretty easily, as does LSU. I have the Georgetown upset coming your way as well. I think they take down Colorado. Florida State over UNC Greensboro. And I agree. I think Michigan State's going to win the Michigan State-UCLA game. But I think no matter who wins that game, they beat BYU. I'm thinking it's going to be Michigan State, but even if UCLA's team comes out, I think both of them beat BYU. I'm taking Texas. I don't know, Ben. That's a risky one. You might be one of the few people in this country that get that one right if it's the way you think it's going to go. I'm going Big Ten for the 7-10 matchup. I'm going to take the Terrapins of Maryland, and then I'm taking Alabama over Iona. Looking at the round of 32, I have the Wolverines over the Tigers, Michigan moving on, and then I have Florida State ending Georgetown's hot run that they're on. And then Michigan State over Texas. I have the Spartans moving on to the Sweet 16, and Alabama over Maryland. And that takes me to 1, 2, 4, and 11. I agree with Outlivers. It's Florida State's time to shine. They move on to the Elite Eight, and they'll be taking on the Spartans of Michigan State after Michigan State knocks off Alabama and moves in to the Elite Eight as the 11th seed. They're my Cinderella team. Like you guys said, they're a lot better than that record shows. Played a hard-fought game against the Buckeyes, against the Wolverines. They came into the season as a top 5 team. I think they just caught the short end of the stick of some games, and I think they're going to show in March what they're all about. So that's, for me, my Eastern bracket. That now takes us back up to the top right part of the bracket, which is the Southern region. And Ben, I'll start with you. Take us through your South bracket.
All right. So I got Baylor over Hartford. That's not a discussion. That's going to be an easy win for the Bears. I got Wisconsin upsetting UNC. Nova's going to beat Winthrop, but that'll probably be a game. And there's a very real chance Villanova actually ends up getting upset there, especially without Gillespie. Purdue's going to take out North Texas. Matt Painter's going to get it done. And then Texas Tech over Utah State. Arkansas over Colgate. Virginia Tech, I have them upsetting Florida. And then I have Ohio State rolling past Oral Roberts, which I didn't know was a school until about 2 days ago. Then second round, Baylor over Wisconsin. I have Nova bowing out. I think the second round's the ceiling for the Wildcats without Colin Gillespie. He's the facilitator in their offense, so they still have Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. But without Gillespie, they're just not the same team. So I think Purdue's going to get past them to move to the Sweet 16. Then I have Arkansas getting past Texas Tech, and then OSU going past Virginia Tech. And then Elite Eight, Baylor, and then Ohio State.
All right. So you got the 1 and the 2 going in your Elite Eight. Jacob, I'll send it to you for your South bracket.
Yeah, my South bracket, Baylor rolls past Hartford. North Carolina, they take out Wisconsin here. I think that the Tar Heels are better than what their record shows as well. I think that they were losing a lot of games early on, but I think they found their identity down the stretch here a little bit more.
Also
so I'm
tend to be a tournament team as well.
Yep, that's for sure. So I'm going Tar Heels over the Badgers. Villanova and Winthrop. I think Winthrop would beat Villanova even if the Wildcats had Colin Gillespie. I don't even think that I think Villanova is slightly overrated this year. Mm-hmm. They've really been a hot and cold team. And without Gillespie, I definitely think that this Winthrop team that comes in at 23-1, they have a golden opportunity to take out the Wildcats. So I have them advancing on to the second round. And then Purdue and North Texas. I took a long look at this one. I think that North Texas has a good chance to take out Purdue, but I do believe in Matt Painter, and I think that he's going to have his team ready. So I got the Boilermakers taking out North Texas in a very close game. And then Texas Tech and Utah State, again, took a very close look at this one. But I like Mac McClung. I like Terrence Shannon Jr. And this is a Texas Tech team that made the national championship in the last tournament. So I'm going Red Raiders here. They're going to take out Utah State. And then Arkansas and Colgate. A lot of people are saying this could be an upset, but I don't really believe that at all. I think Moses Moody, I think he personally was the best player in the SEC this year. So I'm going with the Razorbacks over Colgate. And then Florida, Virginia Tech, I think that the Hokies are going to win that matchup there. And Ohio State, Oral Roberts, I think the Buckeyes are going to roll in the first round. And then we go to the round of 32, and this is where my bracket starts to get a little bit different. A lot of people believe in Baylor, but the eye test for me, they're just not passing it ever since they've gotten off this COVID hiatus. And I do love Jared Butler and I love Davion Mitchell. They've been great, but it's a Roy Williams-led North Carolina squad. So give me the Tar Heels in this one. I have the Tar Heels going on to the Sweet 16. And quite frankly, I think they have an opportunity to run away with this game. Not by like 20 points or anything like that. Saying maybe like a 10-point win or something for the Tar Heels right there. Would not be surprised at all to see that. Then Winthrop and Purdue. I think Winthrop's giving the Boilermakers a run for their money, but Boilermakers are going to end up winning that one and go to the Sweet 16. Texas Tech and Arkansas, don't think that that's much of a contest there. I believe in Arkansas's high-powered offense, and they're going to take out the Red Raiders. And Ohio State Tech, once again, Ohio State rolls, and they move on to the Sweet 16. And then in the Sweet 16 themselves, I think North Carolina keeps up their run, honestly. And I think that it's just the leadership of Roy Williams and the play of certain players such as Armando Bacot and Caleb Love. I think that the Tar Heels have what it takes to make it to the Elite Eight when a lot of people have counted them out this year. And in an Arkansas and Ohio State game, it's going to be very, very close. It's going to be a great game. But I think this comes down to maybe the last possession. And the Razorbacks were red hot heading into the SEC tournament. I believe in them. I've got Arkansas upsetting the Buckeyes there in the Sweet 16.
All right, so you got the 8-3 matchup there going on in the South. Brendan, let's hear your Southern bracket.
So mine's kind of different, but yet kind of similar. Obviously, I have Baylor winning in the first round against Hartford. I agree. I do think North Carolina is playing much better basketball than they have in the first half of the season. Roy Williams somehow found a way to get that team on track. This is where I do take Winthrop, whatever, to move on and beat Villanova. I don't know what happened to the Wildcats there. Jay Wright had not such a great recruiting class here for Villanova. Definitely a down year for them. I do have Purdue knocking off number 13 North Texas. Texas Tech, one of the underrated teams in all the country, winning over Utah State. This is where I do take the Raiders from Colgate to knock off Arkansas. Colgate has found themselves in the tournament in the past. They almost defeated a really good Tennessee team a few years ago in the tournament. They find a way to get this done and get that first round upset. And then I have number 7 Florida defeating number 10 Virginia Tech. I trust in the Gators out of the SEC. And then I got Ohio State knocking off Oral Roberts. In the round of 32, I agree with you, Jacob. The Tar Heels get it done again, and they knock off the number 1 Bears. I don't know what happened to Baylor, man. They were in the first half of the season. They just could not miss. They were lighting up the scoreboard, and then all of a sudden played just well enough to hold on to a 1 seed. But I don't really trust them. I got Purdue defeating Winthrop. Then Texas Tech defeats Colgate. And then Florida defeats Ohio State. I do not trust the Buckeyes at all. They are just so overrated. It's not even funny. Ohio State, sorry, but you remain a football school for another year. And then moving on to my Elite Eight, I got North Carolina defeating Purdue, and then Florida defeating Texas Tech. So
you got
8.
7.
I got an 8. Yeah, I got an 8 against 7 Elite Eight, Will.
Wow. Okay, so let me break down mine. Baylor takes down Hartford. North Carolina beats Wisconsin. Winthrop over Villanova. I'm going the 12-5 upset there as well. Purdue over North Texas. I'm going Red Raiders in the next one with Texas Tech over Utah State. I have Arkansas taking down Colgate. Now, Brendan, I did contemplate making this one of my upsets, but I went with Razorbacks just because of how hot they are, like Jacob said. And then I got Gators and Buckeyes moving on to the next 2 games to take each other on the round of 32. Looking at the round of 32, I'm going Tar Heels, baby. They're a tournament team. It's tournament time, and here we go. Purdue over Winthrop to take on North Carolina. And then I got Texas Tech and Ohio State winning the other 2 games in a 2-6 matchup. I do have the Red Raiders upsetting Arkansas. And I agree with Brendan, a very underrated team. But I agree Ohio State's really tough to watch down the stretch, but I still think they get it done against the Gators. And I think they get it done against Texas Tech as well. I have the Buckeyes moving on to the Elite Eight. And then I have them taking on the Tar Heels of North Carolina as I have the 8 seed in the Elite Eight as well. I thought I was going to be a rarity with that one, but apparently that's the popular opinion on this podcast. So I'm going North Carolina, Ohio State for my Elite Eight in the South. And that takes us to the final bracket before we talk about our Final Four teams, the Midwest bracket. And Brendan, I'll start with you. Break down the Midwest. I think you're muted, buddy.
My bad.
It's all good. It's all good.
I got Illinois defeating Drexel. I didn't even know Drexel was a D1 school, by the way. Loyola Chicago, the Sister Jean story continues. They defeat Georgia Tech.
Which she got a vaccine, so she's allowed to go to the game now. So it's in the books. Sorry, Georgia Tech.
Oh, the Ramblers got that nun power by their side. This is a very difficult pick for me. But I'm taking Oregon State to defeat Tennessee.
Okay.
And then Oklahoma State defeats Liberty. That might be a blowout, by the way. And then Syracuse finds a way to get it done against San Diego State. The Orange are just, I think, a much more talented team, much better coach team. And then West Virginia takes down Morehead State. Rutgers in the tournament for the first time in a while, I believe. They get it done again out of the Big Ten, taking down Clemson.
And does Brennan do it?
And then
does he do it?
I'm on the Vikes bandwagon, baby. Cleveland State gets the 15-2 upset.
Whoa, there it is. When Ben made that 3-14 upset pick with Abilene Christian, I said the only way we have a 2-15 upset in this bracket is by Brendan saying Cleveland State over Houston. And there it is, everybody. There it is.
I'm staying loyal to my city. The Vikings get it done. Dennis Gates, bringing back. Remember, Cleveland State, the last time that they were in the tournament, 2009, they made the Sweet 16. So.
Oh, here we go.
And then into the round of 32, Illinois defeats Loyola Chicago. I love the Loyola Chicago story and their Cinderella run, but that they had a few years back. But it's a different team, and they just end up running into that number one seed. So, and then Oklahoma State defeats Oregon State. Never really thought I would see a matchup like that in basketball. That's more of a football game when I look at it. But and then West Virginia defeats Syracuse. And then I want to pick Cleveland State so bad, but I just don't think they have enough in the tank to defeat Rutgers. Rutgers moves on. Then in the Sweet 16, Illinois takes down Oklahoma State, and then West Virginia defeats Rutgers. So I got a 1-3 Elite Eight in the Midwest.
All right, 1-3. Jacob, we'll send it over to you. Midwest bracket, go.
Illinois, Drexel. I did know Drexel was a D1 school, but I also know that they have no chance against Illinois. This is going to be a huge blowout. So the Fighting Illini, they're going to blow out Drexel here. Georgia Tech and Loyola, I agree with Brendan. I love the Loyola Chicago story, and I love that Sister Jean is there. But Georgia Tech coming off that ACC tournament win. I got Georgia Tech barely beating Loyola. I know, Brendan, I really wanted to pick them, but I'm riding with Georgia Tech right now. And Oregon State and Tennessee, I could do the same thing, ride with the Pac-12 champ, but I just believe in this Tennessee team too much. They hit a rough patch at one point in the season, but I think that Tennessee is also better than what their record shows. I think that they take out the Beavers in this case. Oklahoma State and Liberty, I think it's going to be kind of close. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a blowout, but Cade Cunningham, he's going to put on a show. I think he's going to have a great March Madness here, and I've got the Cowboys taking out the Flames there. And then San Diego State and Syracuse, I think it's going to be a very close game, and I really wanted to pick the Orange here, but I just had to go with the Aztecs. They play much better defense than the Orange has all season. So I think San Diego State, they come out narrowly with a win against Syracuse. And then West Virginia, Morehead State. I love me some Miles McBride and some Derek Culver. So I'm going with West Virginia over Morehead State there. And then Clemson, Rutgers. Rutgers is better than what their record shows, but Clemson, I just believe in them a lot this year. I like Amir Sims. He's been a great leader there for that Clemson squad. So with Clemson going on to the round of 32, and Houston, Cleveland State. I mean, Cleveland State could give Houston a run for their money potentially, because I think that this Houston team isn't as good as the other two seeds, but Houston's going to get it done over the Vikings. And then my round of 32, Illinois, Georgia Tech, don't think that's much of a contest here. Io and Kofi are going to get the job done for the Fighting Illini. They're going to move on to the Sweet 16. And Oklahoma State and Tennessee, it's the same thing here. Cade Cunningham, he's going to carry the Cowboys to the Sweet 16 once again. So Oklahoma State is going to the Sweet 16. Then West Virginia, San Diego State. Don't think it's much of a contest here also. I think West Virginia's got too much firepower. They move on to the Sweet 16. And then Clemson and Houston, like how I just said, don't think Houston's that great of a 2 seed. So I've got Clemson advancing to the Sweet 16 here. I really do just love Amir Sims. And Clemson has played well against the top 25 this year in the limited action that they've had. They played pretty well in the ACC, so I think it's pretty reasonable to think that they could make the Sweet 16 here. But I agree with Brendan on his Elite Eight. I think Illinois, once again, they roll past Oklahoma State here. They make it to the Elite Eight. And West Virginia as well. I think they're a very strong basketball team, and they're moving on to the Elite Eight as well. And it's going to be a very exciting matchup between the Mountaineers and the Fighting Illini.
All right, so 1-3 for you as well. Ben, let me hear your Midwest bracket.
All right, so I got Illinois absolutely demolishing Drexel. It's not going to be a game. Then I got Georgia Tech over Loyola Chicago. John Pastor's going to get it done, get the minor upset there. Move on to the second round to get smacked by Illinois. Tennessee over Oregon State. Oklahoma State over Liberty. Then I got San Diego over Syracuse. West Virginia's going to get it done against Morehead State. Rutgers in the tournament for the first time since 1991. Should have broke the streak last year, but they're in it this year. I think they get it done against Clemson. I think they're a good, sneaky good hoops team. I think they get to the second round. And then I think Houston manhandles Cleveland State. And I hope you're good with not seeing Cleveland State back here for another decade, because Dennis Gates is 110% going to bolt after this, the second he gets a job offer. So I hope you enjoyed this run. Second round, Illinois over Georgia Tech. I don't think that should be much of a game. I've got Oklahoma State. Cade Cunningham and company are going to get past Tennessee to get to the Sweet 16. I've got West Virginia taking care of San Diego and Houston taking care of Rutgers. Then the Sweet 16, I've got Illinois getting past Oklahoma State, and then West Virginia taking care of Houston. From there, I got the Illini moving on.
So 1-3 for you as well. And this is probably my most boring bracket. I take a lot of the top seeds in this one. I think that's how it is for a lot of people, just because it seems like a lot of firepower in the front and not as much in the back. But I'm going Illinois, Loyola, Chicago for the first two. Tennessee and Oklahoma State, as Oklahoma State, Cade Cunningham puts out the flame and Liberty's done. San Diego State, the Aztecs will squeeze the oranges and they'll move on and they'll face West Virginia. Big West Virginia fan coming into this bracket. Like Jacob said, just an all-around good basketball team. And then I have Clemson and Houston in the bottom two games there moving on. So the top seed, really, top 8 seeds all move on for me. And then 1-4 moving on. In the next round, I have Illinois over Loyola Chicago. Cade Cunningham again helps Oklahoma State get over Tennessee. And then West Virginia over San Diego State and Houston over Clemson. And who would have thought? Illinois, West Virginia. That's who I have as my Elite Eight. So for the first time, it takes till the fourth bracket, but we all four agree Illinois, West Virginia will be the Elite Eight in the Midwest bracket. And so now that takes us, guys, to the Final Four, and who we think will be the Final Four teams remaining in this bracket. So let's change things up. I'm gonna go first. I usually have you guys all go first and then I talk. So for me, I have Gonzaga over Iowa. I think it's gonna be a very good game. Luka Garza, just comes up short. Doesn't get enough help in this one. I think Gonzaga stays undefeated, moves on to the Final Four, and they'll play Florida State. For me, I had Florida State, Michigan State as my Elite Eight. I don't think an 11 seed makes it to the Final Four there, and I have the 4 seed Seminoles ending the run that Tom Izzo and the Spartans had. Up in the South bracket, I have North Carolina keeping their run going. 8 seed Tar Heels take down the 2 seed Buckeyes, and the Tar Heels make it to the Final Four. Again, love Roy Williams, love how much of a tournament team North Carolina really is, and I think they show it this year. And then for the Midwest, I have the Fighting Illini taking down the Mountaineers in a really good game. I think this could be the best game of the bracket, honestly. But I think Io and Kofi, the two key players, both in talks for Player of the Year. Io just won USA Today Player of the Year. I think they get it done for Illinois, and you'll see the 1-8 matchup in the Final Four between Illinois and North Carolina. So, Jacob, I'll send it to you. What's your Final Four?
Yeah, my Final Four, we had some similarities there, honestly. I'm going in a very tough game, I think, for Gonzaga. I got Gonzaga barely winning really against Kansas. I think Bill Self's going to have his team ready just because of the experience factor there. So it's going to be a close game, but Gonzaga's going to get it done. Florida State and Texas, I mean, it was very hard for me to pick against the Texas Longhorns because I have loved me some Texas Longhorn basketball, but I also love me some Leonard Hamilton basketball and the way that Scotty Barnes, their sixth man, has come off the bench for them this year and played very well. So I think that the Seminoles, they do get to the Final Four with Leonard Hamilton at the helm. North Carolina and Arkansas, I like your confidence, Will, but I look at this Arkansas team and I really do believe in them this year. They're led by Moses Moody, who's a freshman, but they're also led by Justin Smith, who is a senior. So they have that leadership, and they also have that dynamic freshman. I do think Arkansas, they get past Roy Williams and North Carolina. And I don't want to say it's not going to be much of a game, but I would not be surprised to see it be a double-digit game here. And finally, Illinois and West Virginia. I think Huggins is going to make it tough there for Illinois, but I do think that the Fighting Illini, they get it done just because of Io DeSunmu and Kofi Cockburn right there. I do think that Illinois has a chance to make it to the Final Four.
All right. Ben, I'll send it down to you. Who are your Final Four teams?
All right. So starting out west, I got Gonzaga. I think that's probably the easiest choice on this list. I think Luka Garza probably has a heck of a game, but the Bulldogs get it done. Mark Few heads to the Final Four with a chance for his first title. Over in the South, Baylor, Ohio State. I think the Buckeyes, if they have Kyle Young back by this point, which they should, he's out with concussion again, they should be able to nearly get past Baylor and get to the Final Four. But if he's not out there, it's going to be really hard. But even then, with E.J. Liddell, Dwayne Washington Jr., C.J. Walker, Zed Key, Justin Arns, who's a fantastic shooter. I mean, they've still got enough firepower. They can still do it. But I don't have a ton of faith that they would. I think it'd be a close loss without him. But I'll still take OSU to win, because I'm assuming Kyle Young will be back by then. Out in the Midwest, Illini, Mountaineers. I'll take the Illini. I think Io DeSunmu and Kofi Cockburn. Which one of those? One of those two. Well, I got it right one of those times. Will step up. They'll have a big game, and they'll get past the Mountaineers to head to the Final Four. And then Alabama, they play a great game. A lot of firepower with their space and pace offense. They're going to get past Florida State and move on as well.
All right. Brendan, your Final Four teams.
Yeah, Gonzaga and Iowa. I think that's kind of the matchup that everyone is kind of wanted to see. They played each other back in December in a non-conference game, and that was actually a really close matchup. Gonzaga won it by 10, and I think they're going to take this round again. I mean, Iowa is one of the just best. I mean, one of the most surprising teams in the country this year. They've really established that program from the ground up. I think they're a year away, though. They move on, but Gonzaga moves on to the Final Four. Then I got number 12 Georgetown against number 2 Alabama. The run ends for the Hoyas, but it just hurts. But it hurts me to be picking Alabama of all schools to be in the Final Four. You can either be a football school or a basketball school. You can't be both. But it seems like the Crimson Tide have figured out to do both. They're moving on to the Final Four. Then in number 8, North Carolina against number 7, Florida. I do think the Tar Heels just find a way to get it done again, and they move on to the Final Four. Just looking at that matchup in my Elite 8, I'm looking at 8 and 7. That's probably not going to happen. So I might be regretting this pick, but I'm going to stay true to it. And then number 1, Illinois against number 3, West Virginia. Bob Huggins is a great coach, but he just doesn't have the skill set or the talent to eventually break through. I've got Illinois making the Final Four as the only Big Ten team for me.
All right, so there you have it. All of us in our Final Fours. Now it's time to talk about the championship. Ben, I'll start with you. Who makes it? Who wins? And what's the final score?
I'll take Gonzaga over Ohio State. Probably. Oh, no. That wrong sides of the bracket. Got ahead of myself. Ohio State over Illinois.
Okay.
Again, I'm assuming at this point that Kyle Young is back by this point. I think he's going to get some points, some rebounds. He's a gritty player, tough, will play defense, do the little things. So I think with him back, they'll beat Illinois narrowly. It'll still be really close. They'll beat them to go to the championship game. Then Alabama and Gonzaga, I'm taking the Bulldogs. Zags roll on, and then I think they beat Ohio State by about 8-10 in the championship game.
Okay. So Gonzaga by 8 to 10 points over the Buckeyes. So Ben is going to enter in the Bulldogs for his answer for this year's champion. So Jacob, we'll go up to you. Who's in? Who's winning? And what's the final score?
So I don't think either one of my Final Four games is going to be that close, really. I think that Gonzaga pulls away from Florida State here because I just think Gonzaga has way too much firepower for Leonard Hamilton's squad. And the same goes for Illinois and Arkansas. It's a great run for the Razorbacks because really I don't think any of us saw the Razorbacks being as good as they have been this year. So it's just great to see them in this situation. But Illinois, they have too much firepower right there. So I have a 1 seed versus a 1 seed, which is probably not a smart move in the NCAA tournament. But I do have Gonzaga and Illinois in the national championship game. And this is going to be a very close game, and there's going to be a lot of offense in it. But I came into this season thinking Luka Garza was National Player of the Year. Now, give me Ayo as the Player of the Year this year in college basketball. And I think Ayo Dosunmu caps off this amazing season with the help of Kofi Cockburn. And I believe that the Illinois Fighting Illini defeat the Gonzaga Bulldogs 81-75. And Gonzaga does not have an unbeaten season, but has an incredible season nonetheless. And Illinois, like I said, it's just the cherry on top for Ayo Dosunmu on really just a great basketball season.
All right, so Jacob will punch in the Fighting Illini. Brendan, who's your final two? Who's winning? And the final score?
So in the West against East matchup, I've got Gonzaga defeating Alabama. Bulldogs move on. I think the last time, it's been a few years since they've been in the championship, Gonzaga. And then I do have Illinois defeating North Carolina. I agree, Jacob. I can't remember the last time. It was a 1-against-1 matchup, so probably not the smartest move. But I'd take a look at this championship I have for me, and there's 2 possible streaks that can come to an end. The streak for teams going completely undefeated in the regular season, that's only happened like 5 times in college basketball history, and the streak of Big Ten teams losing in the championship game. The last time a Big Ten team won the national championship was 2000 with Michigan State. But I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here, defeating Illinois. Final score 78-74. It's a close one, but rolling with the Zags. They finally get it done.
All right, so we have 2 Gonzaga, 1 Illinois, and for me, so I have Gonzaga taking down Florida State. I agree with Jacob. I don't even know if this one will be close, but I'm taking the Bulldogs to get to the championships, remain undefeated. And then Illinois over North Carolina for me as well, fighting an Illini. Ayo Dosunmu is my player of the year, especially while wearing the mask. But I'm going Illinois over Gonzaga for the championship. So we have a 2-2 split on the podcast here tonight. I have a final score of 84-81. I'm in an exact agreement with Jacob. It's going to be an offensive firework type of night, but Illinois gets it done in a 3-point game in the Big Ten after a great season for the whole conference. They get represented by the Fighting Illini and winning the championship. To break the tie, though, I'll announce Riley, who sent me his bracket. His Final Four was Gonzaga, Texas, Illinois, and Purdue, and he had Gonzaga over Purdue in the championship. So he breaks the 2-2 split, makes it 3-2. Purdue go in the championship. So we'll see how accurate he is. But as far as us 5 that all relayed information or whatever information during the podcast, we have a 3-2 Gonzaga over Illinois split. We'll see what happens. And be sure to follow at WRMU_sports on Twitter, as I'll be posting all 4 of our brackets, Riley's brackets, and any other member of the WRMU sports team who gets their bracket to me before Thursday or Friday, because technically you can submit it even after the first 4 games. It has to be solidified before the round of 64 starts. So anybody that gets it into me by then for our sports team will be up on Twitter, and we'll have round updates and see who in the sports team has the bragging rights come April 3rd, or April 5th, correction, and who can say I'm the college basketball guru for this season. But that takes us to last call here on RaiderZone, and obviously we're going to stick with the theme of the NCAA tournament. Favorite NCAA tournament moment for you guys? Brendan, I'll start with you.
Am I allowed to have 2?
Yeah, go right ahead.
The run that Loyola Chicago went on, was it 3 years ago now?
2 or 3.
When they lost to Michigan in the Final Four. The way that they won those games was amazing to me.
Yeah.
The buzzer beater against Miami really, I think, got them going. They just carried that momentum through to the Final Four. Then they had a buzzer beater against Kansas State as well, I think. That was really that's what March Madness is all about for me. And then I can't even remember the year, but it's definitely more recent. Dunk City, Florida Gulf Coast, the run that they went on, they didn't make the Final Four. But the way that they defeated teams, I think Georgetown was like a 2 seed, 2 or 3 seed, and they found a way to knock them off. But the dunks that they had as like this Cinderella team, no one really knew about them. I think I remember watching those games, and the broadcasters were like, "Yeah, Florida Gulf Coast, they just established the school within like the last 10 years, and they just played with so much like swagger and hype. All the dunks that they had, that was really, one of the Cinderella teams that you'll always remember."
I love it. Yeah, you definitely love seeing the runs by the teams that you never expect, and we'll see if this year has a team like that, as a couple of us has predicted, maybe Ohio, or as Brendan has Georgetown, maybe there is, or Abilene Christian makes a couple game run there. Jacob, your favorite moments in NCAA tournament past?
Yeah, so I have 3 moments. I would say the first one was my first time really that I ever got fully invested in the NCAA tournament, and that was 2010 when Butler went on their incredible run all the way to the national championship game. And that has a lot of personal hometown ties with me too, because I'm from the Youngstown area, and the last team to beat Butler before Duke did was Youngstown State, and I actually happened to be at that game where Gordon Hayward and the Butler Bulldogs ended up losing to the Penguins. And I'll always remember Gordon Hayward's shot just barely hanging on the rim there, that half-court heave in the national championship game. I think that broke everybody's hearts right there. But that was a great moment. I love to see the Bulldogs go on that run. And then I have to go to a game that I went to in person. It was the 2015 Elite Eight. I forget what region it was, but that's beside the point. It was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, led by Jerry and Grant, Zach August, Steve Asturia, Pat Connaughton, all those guys. They were set to take down the undefeated Kentucky squad led by guys like Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, the Harrison twins. And I just remember the energy in what's now Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. At the time, it was Quicken Loans Arena. I was sitting in the last row in the whole entire arena, and I came into that game somewhat of a Notre Dame fan. I left it crying because it was so painful to see one of the Harrison twins knock down those free throws at the end of the game, and Jerry and Grant's heave at the buzzer just barely missed. So that was a great moment right there, just an in-person moment. But my favorite moment of all time, 2011, it's why I love this man in the NBA today, Cardiac Kemba. It started in the Big East tournament. He carried it all the way through the NCAA tournament. I don't care what people say. I will argue with anybody about this. I think that is the greatest single tournament run ever by one player in Kemba Walker. He just carried that whole entire UConn team all the way to the national championship win. And I will always remember that about Kemba Walker, and that's why I still follow him so much today in the NBA.
Love it, love it. Ben, your favorite moments?
I'm going to go with the more recent one, UMBC over Virginia.
Okay.
Because, let's be honest here, that's probably never going to happen in our lifetimes again. That was a once-in-a-lifetime upset. Just incredible.
If it does, it won't be in that blowout fashion again. I don't see a 16 seed pouring it on against a 1 seed anytime soon.
Yeah, true.
All right. Love it, Ben. And then for me, I'm going kind of recent, I guess. Villanova, North Carolina championship. I don't think we'll ever see an ending like that again. North Carolina splashes a three, an acrobatic style to tie the game up, and then Villanova, a little toss back, and bang, Villanova wins the national championship. What a game. But Jacob, that Notre Dame run, as a Notre Dame fan, it was a run I cried after the game as well. It was really sad not seeing Grant's shot fall, but nonetheless a great run by the Fighting Irish and something we probably won't see that program do for quite some time, unfortunately. So that is it for episode 17. Thanks again to Brendan DeVinny, Jacob Utah, and Ben Johnson-Bowers for jumping on with me here on RaiderZone. And we'll see which one of us has bragging rights come April 5th as the college basketball guru. Thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.